when I saw the plane take off without me, with my son and my daughter-in-law inside. I knew that this would be the moment they would remember for the rest of their lives. Not because of what I did, but because of what I chose not to do. For the first time in 65 years, I chose not to be a solution for anyone but myself. I was standing at the airport, my bag in my hand, watching the aircraft rise into the clouds. Jason must have been looking for me in the plane's aisle. Chelsea was probably already checking her phone, sending me texts that I wasn't going to answer. And there I was, still feeling something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was simply the quiet understanding that my life belonged to me, and no one had the right to take it as if it were a free resource. It all started 3 months earlier when Jason called me with that voice he always used when he needed something. That soft, affectionate voice that made my mother's heart melt before I could think clearly. "Mom, I have incredible news. Chelsea and I want to invite you to spend 2 weeks at the beach with us. A beautiful place right on the ocean. So you can relax and we can enjoy some time together." I felt a warm glow in my chest. It had been so long since we spent quality time together. Since he married Chelsea, visits had become increasingly spaced out. Colder, more functional. There was always a reason not to stay long. There was always something more important to do. But now he was inviting me for 2 whole weeks. 2 weeks to make up for lost time. To be the mom he needed again. To get to know Chelsea better. To build something like a real family. Of course, my dear. I would love to go with you. Thank you for thinking of me. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then that nervous laugh I knew so well. The laugh that appeared when he was about to ask me for something else. "Oh, Mum, I'm so glad you said yes. Because look, there's one small detail. We already bought our tickets, but we figured you could buy yours. You know, you have your retirement checks, and we're a little tight this month. But don't worry, it's a minor detail. A minor detail. $400 for a round-trip ticket. Nearly half of my monthly retirement check. But it was my son. It was an opportunity to be close to him. To get back something I felt was lost. It's all right. Jason, I'll take care of my ticket. No problem. Perfect. Mom, you're the best. I'll send you the flight details so you can buy the same one as ours." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of happiness and worry. $400 was a lot of money for me, but it was worth it if I could spend time with my son. If I could feel that I was still important to him, that he still needed me. I bought the ticket that same afternoon. I used my credit card, knowing I would have to be more careful with expenses for the next 2 months to pay it off. But I was excited. 2 weeks at the beach with my family. 2 weeks to show that I was still useful, that I still had something to offer. 2 weeks later, Jason called again. "Mom, I need to ask you for one more little favor. The resort we're staying at has a special rate if we book 3 rooms together. Chelsea and I thought we could take advantage of it. But we need you to reserve your room. 2. It's just to secure the discount. You know how these things go." I didn't know how those things went, but I trusted my son. I always had. "How much is the room?" "It's cheap. Mom, only $60 per night, and it's 15 nights. So that would be $900. But look, it's an investment. We're going to have an amazing time. $900, more than my total monthly retirement check. I felt a knot in my stomach, but I didn't want to say no. I didn't want to seem like the stingy mom, the one who ruins plans, the one who can't afford to enjoy time with her family. Let me see what I can do. Jason, I'll confirm tomorrow. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling in my room, running numbers in my head. If I paid for the room, I would have to use the savings I kept for emergencies. That $1,200 I had put together over the years, saving $10 or $20 every month, denying myself small treats to have some security. But it was my son, and 2 weeks with him was worth more than any amount of money. The next day, I called him and told him to book the room in my name, that I would handle the payment. Jason sounded so happy, so grateful that I felt I had made the right decision. You're the best mum in the world. Seriously, I don't know what we would do without you. Those words, I don't know what we would do without you, filled my heart. It meant he needed me, that I was still important, that my presence made a difference. A week before the trip, Chelsea called me. It was the first time she had contacted me directly since they announced the trip. Her voice was sweet, but there was something about it that made me nervous. Something I couldn't identify, but which made me feel small. Elaine, I need to talk to you about the trip. I want us all to be on the same page so everything goes perfectly. Of course. Chelsea, tell me what you need. Well, as you know, this trip is mainly for Jason and me to rest. We've had a very heavy year with work and we need to disconnect. But we also thought it would be nice to have you there to keep us company and so you can help us with a few things. A few things. That little phrase that can mean so many things. What kind of things? Chelsea. Oh, nothing major. Just simple things. For example, Jason and I want to sleep late. So it would be great if you could make breakfast. Nothing complicated. Just coffee, fruit, eggs, whatever you can think of. And later, since we'll be at the beach all day, it would be perfect if you could take care of keeping the house tidy. You know, washing the dishes, making the beds, that sort of thing. I felt something cold run down my spine, but I still didn't want to believe what I was hearing. I was still clinging to the idea that this was a family trip, not a service I was meant to provide. Chelsea, I thought we were going to enjoy ourselves together, that we would spend time on the beach, all of us, sharing meals. Yes, of course. Elaine, we're going to be together. Of course. But you understand that at your age, you probably won't want to be in the sun too long, right? Besides, we're younger. We need to take advantage. You can do those little tasks in the morning and then join us whenever you want. It's best for everyone. If this story has touched you, please subscribe to the channel and share the video to help me grow and improve. Your support means the world, at my age. As if 65 years meant I could no longer enjoy the beach. the sun, the ocean, as if my only function was to serve others while they lived their lives. All right, Chelsea. I'll do what I can. Perfect. I knew I could count on you. Oh, and one more thing. Jason and I want to try out the restaurants in the area, but they're a little expensive. We thought maybe you could cook dinner. That way, we save a little. And besides, your cooking is so good. Jason loves your food. So, I wasn't just going to clean and tidy. I was also going to cook 3 meals a day for 2 people who had full-time jobs while I lived on a retirement check that barely covered my own expenses. Chelsea, cooking for 3 people every day for 2 weeks means buying a lot of groceries. That costs money. Oh, Elaine, don't worry about that. Just buy what's necessary and we'll figure out how to organize the expenses later. We're family, right? Family doesn't keep track of things like that. Family doesn't keep track of things like that. But I had already paid for my ticket. I had already paid for my room. I had already spent more than $1,300 on a trip that was supposed to be an invitation. A gift. A time to be together. Let me think about it. Chelsea. I'll confirm in a few days. There's not much to think about, Elaine. It's already decided. I just wanted you to know so you could be prepared. Bring comfortable clothes for being around the house. You won't need much beacher. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. I sat down on the sofa in my living room, that old sofa I had bought when Jason was a child, and I started to cry. Not dramatic tears, but that silent weeping that comes when you understand something you didn't want to understand. This wasn't an invitation. It was an unpaid work contract. I wasn't the guest. I was the employee, the cook, the maid. And on top of that, the one who paid for the privilege of serving them. But I didn't say anything. I didn't call Jason to complain. I didn't confront Chelsea. I stayed silent as I always had because I was afraid. Afraid of causing problems. Afraid they would tell me I was overreacting. Afraid they would stop talking to me. That I would lose my son forever. So, I started to prepare. I went to the grocery store and bought things I could take in my suitcase. Seasonings, spices, some canned goods, things that would help me cook without having to spend too much there. I spent another $100 on that shopping trip. I also went to the pharmacy and bought back pain medication because I knew that standing and cooking and cleaning all day would take its toll. Another $30. Every expense was like a small wound. But I told myself it was worth it. That at the end of the trip, Jason and Chelsea would realize everything I had done for them. That they would thank me. That they would value me. How naive I was. 3 days before the trip, Jason stopped by my house. He arrived with a huge smile. That boyish smile that always melted my heart. He hugged me tight and told me he was excited about the trip, that it was going to be incredible, that he had been waiting for a vacation like this for years. He didn't mention anything about the chores Chelsea had assigned me. He didn't ask if I was okay with everything. He only talked about himself, his plans, what he wanted to do. Mom, I need to ask you for one more favor. Could you lend us $300 for travel expenses? It's just that with so many expenses, we're a little short. We'll pay you back when we get back. I promise you. $300 more. I had already spent nearly $1,500. My bank account was practically empty. My savings had evaporated. But it was my son, my only son, the child I had raised alone after his father abandoned us. The child I had worked double shifts for years to give a good education. The child who was now a grown man with a steady job, but who kept coming to ask his retired mum for money. Jason, I've already spent so much on this trip. I don't know if I can give you any more. His expression changed. The smile disappeared. In its place appeared something cold, something that scared me. Then why did you say the trip was on if you weren't going to contribute? Chelsea and I were counting on you. Mom, I thought you wanted to spend time with us. But I see that money is more important to you than your own family. I felt like I had been punched. As if suddenly I was the villain in the story. The selfish mother who wouldn't help her son. The one who put money above love. It's not that. Jason. Of course. I want to be with you. Give me a moment. I went to my room. I opened the drawer where I kept my last resort. An envelope with $400 that I had saved for a real emergency. Money that had taken me years to save. Money that represented months of deprivation. Of not buying new clothes. Of not going to the doctor when I should. Of eating less so I could save more. I took $300 from the envelope and gave it to him. Jason hugged me again. He kissed me on the forehead and told me I was the best mom in the world. When he left, I stood in the doorway watching his car drive away. And for the first time, I felt something different. It wasn't unconditional love. It wasn't maternal pride. It was something akin to weariness, to disappointment, to the profound sadness of understanding that perhaps my son didn't see me as his mother, but as a resource from which to extract what he needed. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay staring at the ceiling, reviewing every moment of the last few months, every call, every request, every promise that this would be different, that we would finally spend quality time together. And then I saw the pattern. It wasn't the first time. It had never been the first time. I remembered when Jason turned 30 and asked to borrow $2,000 for the down payment on his car. He promised he would pay me back in 6 months. 5 years had passed. I never saw that money back. I remembered when he married Chelsea and asked me to pay for the wedding dress because they were saving for the honeymoon. $3,000 that came from selling some jewelry my mother had left me. Jewelry that had sentimental value, not just monetary. I remembered every birthday, every Christmas, every special occasion where I arrived with gifts and they arrived empty-handed, saying they were going through a tough time, that they would make it up to me later. I remembered the times they called me only when they needed something. Money, help cleaning their house, to watch their dog when they went on trips, to cook for a dinner party they were hosting for their friends. And I remembered how every time I hinted that I was tired, that I needed a break, that I also had my own needs, Jason would look at me with those sad eyes and say, "Mom, I thought I could count on you. You're the only family I have." Guilt. Always guilt. The perfect weapon to keep me in line. To keep me giving without receiving anything in return. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. I made a cup of herbal tea, the kind that always calmed me when anxiety tightened my chest. I sat at the table and pulled out an old notebook where I used to track my expenses. I started writing. Every dollar I had spent over the last 5 years on things related to Jason and Chelsea. Not birthday or Christmas presents. Those didn't count. Only the things they had borrowed. The financial aid. The favors that ended up costing me money. When I finished adding it up, the number took my breath away. $18,000, nearly 3 years of my full retirement income. Money I would never see back. Money I could have used to fix up my house, to travel alone, to have a more comfortable old age. But it wasn't just the money. It was the time. The hours I had spent cleaning their house while they went out with friends. The weekends I had sacrificed to care for their things while they enjoyed themselves. The times I had cancelled my own plans because they needed me. And never, not once, had they asked me what I needed, what I dreamed of, what I wanted to do with my life. For them, I was an extension of their comfort, an always available resource, a mother who existed solely to solve their problems and make their lives easier. I closed the notebook and put it away. I wasn't going to show those numbers to anyone. I wasn't going to complain because I had understood something important. No matter how many times I showed them the reality, they weren't going to change. Not because they were bad people, but because it benefited them for me to remain who I was. The mum who always says yes. The one who always finds a way. The one who never complains. 2 days before the trip, Chelsea sent me a text. It was long, detailed, a complete list of everything I needed to do during the vacation. Elaine, so you can be organized. I'm sending you the schedule. Breakfast at 9, 0 inches the morning. Nothing too elaborate, but something substantial. Then clean the kitchen and the bathrooms. Make the beds before 11 because that's when we're leaving for the beach. Have lunch ready at 1, 0 inches the afternoon. Something light but filling. In the afternoon, while we rest. You can do the laundry and ironing. Dinner should be ready by 8, 0 inches the evening. Jason prefers hot food for dinner. No cold salads. After dinner, clean up everything and leave the kitchen spotless. Oh, and on the weekends, we can do something together if you're not too tired. I read the message 3 times. Each time I felt something inside me harden a little more. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. The clarity of seeing exactly what was happening without the filters of maternal love. Without the excuses I had been giving myself. This wasn't an invitation. It was a list of obligations for a housekeeper, with the difference that a housekeeper got paid for her work and had days off. I, on the other hand, had paid for the privilege of working for them. I didn't answer the message. I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling something inside me begin to change. It wasn't a decision yet. It was just a crack in the armor of self-denial that I had built over my entire life. That night, my neighbor Carol came over for coffee. We had been friends for 30 years. She knew me better than anyone. She had been there during the most difficult moments of my life. You look worried. Elaine. What's wrong? I told her everything. The trip. The expenses. The to-do list. The money I had loaned and never got back. I spoke for an hour non-stop, letting out everything I had kept bottled up for months. For years. Carol listened in silence. When I finished, she took my hand and looked me straight in the eye. Elaine, do you want to go on this trip? The question took me by surprise. No one had asked me that. Not Jason. Not Chelsea. Not even myself. I don't know. He's my son. I can't say no to him. You can't, or you don't want to deal with what happens if you say no. That question hit me hard because she was right. It wasn't that I couldn't say no. It was that I was afraid of the consequences. Afraid Jason would get angry. Afraid they would stop talking to me. Afraid of being completely alone. I'm scared. Carol. They're the only family I have left. She squeezed my hand tightly. A family that only seeks you out when they need something isn't family. Elaine. She knew she had to get up early, but she couldn't sleep. She stayed staring at the notebook on the table as if waiting for it to speak to her itself. She read a couple more pages. The annotations became more disorganized as the years went by. There were crossed-out sentences. Single words in the middle of blank pages. Lie. They never looked for me. I don't know if they are still alive. I did wait for them. There were watermarks on some pages. Perhaps tears. Perhaps humidity from some place where she slept outdoors. Near one, 0 inches the morning. I had no safety net. If any emergency happened during the next few weeks, I would be completely unprotected. And all for a trip where I wasn't going to rest, where I wasn't going to enjoy myself, where I was only going to serve 2 people who had apparently forgotten that I too was a human being with needs and limits. That afternoon, I packed my suitcase. I put in comfortable clothes as Chelsea had instructed. Old clothes that I wouldn't mind getting dirty while cooking and cleaning. I didn't pack fancy swimsuits or nice dresses. What for? I wasn't going to the beach. I wasn't going out to dinner. I was going to be cooped up in a house working. As I folded the last shirt, my phone rang. It was Jason. Mum, we'll pick you up at 5, 0 inches the morning tomorrow. The flight leaves at 7 and we can't be late. I hope you're ready. I'll be ready. Jason. Perfect. Oh. And Chelsea reminded me to tell you to bring your credit card just in case we need to buy something there and don't have cash. You know, for groceries and that sort of thing. For groceries. For the food I was going to cook. For cleaning the house they were going to mess up. For everything they needed and that I was supposed to provide. All right. Jason. Great. See you tomorrow morning. Get some rest. I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of my bed. My suitcase was ready. My passport was in my bag. Everything was prepared for this trip that was supposed to be wonderful. But I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel joy. I only felt an enormous weight in my chest, as if I were about to walk into something dark and irreversible. I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the shadows on the ceiling, listening to the silence of my house. This house that had been my sanctuary for so many years. This space where no one asked me for anything. Where I could simply be Elaine without roles or obligations. And I thought about the next 2 weeks. Waking up early every day to make breakfast. Cleaning bathrooms I hadn't dirtied. Washing clothes that weren't mine. Cooking meals for people who never asked what I wanted to eat. spending my days serving while they enjoyed the sun and the ocean. All that after having spent nearly $1,800, after having emptied my savings, after having sacrificed my financial security. And at the end of the trip, I would probably receive a quick thanks, maybe a hurried hug, and then weeks or months without hearing from them until they needed something else. I got out of bed at 3:00 the morning. There was no point in trying to sleep anymore. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I sat at the table where I had so often had breakfast alone, where I had planned my life, where I had cried my sorrows and celebrated my small victories. And in that moment, in the silence of the pre-dawn, something inside me finally broke. Not with noise or drama. It was silent. Like when an old branch finally snaps after holding too much weight for too long. I understood that if I got on that plane, if I went on that trip, I would be confirming something terrible. That it was okay to treat me like that. That it was acceptable to use me. That my value as a person was measured solely by what I could do for others. And I understood something even more important. That no one was going to defend me. No one was going to say this was wrong. No one was going to set limits for me. If I didn't defend myself, no one else would. I took my phone and looked at the list Chelsea had sent me. I read it one more time. Every line. Every task. Every expectation. And this time, instead of feeling obligation, I felt something different. I felt indignation. I felt that I deserved better. I felt that my life, my days, my time were worth more than this. I wasn't going. The decision arrived just like that. Simple and clear. I wasn't getting on that plane. I wasn't going to spend 2 weeks being treated like a housekeeper. I wasn't going to keep allowing my son and daughter-in-law to see me as a free resource. But I wasn't going to tell them. I wasn't going to call to cancel. I wasn't going to give explanations or get into arguments because I knew exactly what would happen if I did. Jason would tell me I was overreacting. Chelsea would make me feel guilty. They would convince me I was being selfish, that I was ruining their vacation, that I was a bad mother. No. This time there would be no discussion. This time I simply wasn't going to show up. At 5 on the dot, the doorbell rang. I peered out the window and saw Jason's car parked in front of my house. He was in the driver's seat. Chelsea was checking her phone in the passenger seat. The doorbell rang again. Then again. I heard Jason's voice calling me. "Mom, we're here. Hurry up. We're going to be late." I stayed still without opening the door. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was something else. It was determination. After 5 minutes, I heard Jason talking on the phone. He was calling me. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. "Mom, where are you? Open the door. We have to go now." I still didn't move. I heard his steps approaching my bedroom window. I heard him tapping on the glass. "Mom, this isn't funny. Open up now, or we're going to miss the flight." Chelsea also got out of the car. I heard her voice. Annoyed. Impatient. "Jason, call someone. Get a neighbor with a key. We can't miss this flight." But no one had a key to my house. And even if they had, I had locked the deadbolt from the inside. They couldn't get in. 20 minutes passed. I heard them arguing outside. I heard Jason call me again and again. I heard Chelsea say that this was ridiculous, that I was being childish, that clearly I didn't want to go, and that they should just leave without me. Finally, I heard the car engine start. I heard them drive away, probably furious, probably confused, but definitely without me. I stayed sitting in my living room for another hour, not moving, barely breathing, processing what I had just done. I had said no without saying a single word. I had set a boundary. For the first time in my life, I had chosen my peace over pleasing my son. I got up from the sofa and went to the kitchen. I made more coffee, this time without rushing, savoring every movement. I opened the window and let the cool morning air in. It was barely 6:12. By now, I should have been at the airport loading luggage, taking orders from Chelsea about what to do and what not to do. Instead, I was in my house, in my space, in peace. My phone started ringing again. It was Jason. I didn't answer. He called again and again, and again. I let all the calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to him. I wasn't ready to hear his complaints, his anger, his attempts to make me feel guilty. I needed this silence. I needed this moment of calm before the storm that I knew would come. At 8:0 the morning, the phone stopped ringing. I guess they were already on the plane, probably sitting in their seats, still processing what had happened. I imagined Jason's face, confused and annoyed. I imagined Chelsea, furious, complaining that I had ruined everything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't care what they thought of me. I served myself breakfast, scrambled eggs with tomato, toast, orange juice. A simple breakfast, but made calmly without the pressure of having to serve anyone else. I sat at my table and ate slowly, looking out the window, watching the neighborhood wake up. The lady across the street was taking out the trash. The young man on the corner was going for a run with his dog. Life was following its normal course, oblivious to the small act of rebellion I had just committed. After breakfast, I washed the dishes. My dishes, my cup, my silverware. No one else had messed anything up. No one had left their mess for me to clean. And I felt something strange. Gratitude for this simple household chore that I was doing just for myself. Then I took a long bath. One of those baths I normally rushed to finish because there was always something else to do. Someone else who needed something. I stayed under the hot water until it started to cool, feeling the tension of the last few months going down the drain. When I got out, I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 5-year-old woman with wrinkles around her eyes, with grey hairs that I had stopped colouring years ago because the dye was expensive. And there were more important things to spend money on. I saw a tired woman. But I also saw something else. I saw someone who had just done something brave. I dressed in comfortable clothes and sat on the sofa with a book I had bought months ago, but never had time to read. And I read for hours without interruptions, without guilt, without the feeling that I should be doing something more productive. It was almost noon when the phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, but I answered. "Mrs." Miller. Yes, this is she. I'm calling from the Seaside Paradise Hotel. We have a problem with the reservation under your son's name, Jason Miller. I felt a knot in my stomach. I knew what was coming. What kind of problem? Well, when your family members arrived, they tried to check in, but the card they presented was declined. They told us that you would be making the payment for all 3 rooms, but we don't see you anywhere. Without payment, we can't give them the keys. I understand. Can you put me through to my son? Please. There was a moment of silence. Then I heard Jason's voice. It sounded different. It was no longer the calm, sweet voice he used when asking for things. It was desperate, almost pleading. Mum, what happened? Why didn't you come? We're here at the hotel and they won't give us the rooms without your card. Chelsea is furious. This is a disaster. I took a deep breath before answering. Jason, I'm not going on that trip. What do you mean you're not going? We're already here. You missed the flight. What are we supposed to do now? I didn't miss the flight. Jason, I decided not to go. I heard a long silence on the other end. Then his voice, now annoyed. You decided not to go? Are you kidding me? Do you know the trouble you caused us? Do you know how embarrassed we were at the airport looking for you? We thought something had happened to you. I stayed silent. I let his words fill the space. I let him realize the absurdity of what he was saying. He hadn't thought something bad had happened to me. He had thought it was an inconvenience for him. Mum, we need you to come, or at least give your card number to the hotel so we can get into the rooms. We can't stay on the street. I'm not giving my card. Jason. What? Why not? It's just to guarantee the rooms. We'll figure out how to organize the payments later. We'll figure it out later. The same old words. The empty promises that were never kept. Jason. I spent $1,800 on this trip. Money I didn't have. I emptied my savings and all to go cook, clean, and serve for 2 weeks. It wasn't an invitation. It was a job. And on top of that, a job I was paying for the privilege of doing. Mom, it's not like that. We wanted you to come so we could spend time together. Spend time together? Chelsea sent me a list. Jason. A complete list of all the chores I was supposed to do. Breakfast at 9. Clean bathrooms. Make beds. Prepare lunch. Do laundry. Ironing. Cook dinner. That's not an invitation to a vacation. That's a work schedule. I heard his heavy breathing. I knew he couldn't deny what I was saying because it was true. Everything was true. Well, maybe Chelsea got a little carried away. But you know how she is. She just wanted everything to be organized. Got a little carried away. As if asking someone to work as a housekeeper for 2 weeks after paying $1,800 was merely a little excessive. Jason, I need you to understand something. I am not going to continue being your solution for everything. I am not going to continue lending you money that you never pay back. I am not going to continue sacrificing my life for your convenience. His voice changed again. Now it sounded hurt, victimized. I can't believe you're doing this. Mom, after everything we've shared, I thought I could count on you. You're my mother. And there it was. The magic phrase. You're my mother. As if that meant I had no right to have boundaries. To say no. To protect my own peace. Yes, Jason, I am your mother. But I am also Elaine. The children do not need to hear this. Do not tell me what is best for my children. Julia turned to him like an attacking snake. And do not call me Mom. I. Prolonged cohabitation with hostile people. You want surveillance? Any method that documents their behavior legally. Cameras in the common areas of your own home. Legal. Living room. Kitchen. Hallways. Audio and video. Cloud backup. Access from your phone. She gave me a quote. $5,000 upfront retainer, plus hourly fees. I signed the contract without hesitation. The money was worthless compared to the truth. I'll need access on Tuesday, she said. Could you get them out for a couple of hours? I'll arrange it. On Tuesday morning, during breakfast, I casually mentioned, I need some things from that specialty market in Coral Gables. Would you mind picking them up? Maybe we can grab lunch together. I gave them a detailed list. Things from a store 30 minutes away. They left at 10. I texted Veronica. She arrived 15 minutes later with equipment cases. Cameras were placed on a living room bookshelf, in a kitchen clock above the table, and in a hallway smoke detector. Small, invisible, recording everything. 90 minutes later, installation complete. Everything completely normal, she stated. Don't let them know you're watching. The best evidence comes when they feel safe. That night, I sat in my study with headphones on, watching the day's recordings. Their return from the errand. The conversation in the kitchen as they unpacked groceries. He's too quiet, Elena said, her voice tight with worry. It's suspicious. We need another approach. Julian leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The direct hit didn't work. Time for the indirect hit. I saved the file, dated it, and labeled it Evidence Log Entry 1. The following days allowed me to build my case. February 28th. Julian discussed contingency plans. March 1st. Elena worried that I was acting strangely. March 2nd. They looked up lawyers to challenge my mental competency. March 3rd. Julian's search history showed declarations of parental incapacity. Every conversation was documented, saved, and organized into folders by topic. I watched them conspire against me with the methodical patience of someone building a legal case brick by brick. Veronica sent weekly reports, their social media activity, online purchases, public record searches, the digital trail of people preparing for war. On March 4th, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. At breakfast, I rubbed my temples. I've been feeling so tired lately. Their heads snapped up like bloodhounds on a scent. That night at dinner, I feigned forgetting where I had left my reading glasses. I've been very forgetful. Elena leaned forward. feigning concern. Maybe you should see a doctor. Dad. It's normal at your age, Julian added casually, but it's definitely worth checking out. I nodded, playing the confused old man. Later, reviewing the recording, I saw them celebrate my confession as if it were a gift. On the night of March 18th, after 3 weeks of evidence, dozens of conversations, and hundreds of hours of recording, I opened my phone and found Harrison Cole's number. Tomorrow, we would build a strategy. It was time to move from documentation to action. The articles appeared on March 5th. I found them scattered on the kitchen counter that morning. Printed pages about cognitive decline, the early symptoms of dementia, and the importance of medical evaluation for seniors. Elena was by the coffee maker watching my reaction. I found this online. I thought it might be helpful to understand what's been happening with you. I picked up the first article and skimmed it with appropriate confusion. I suppose reading wouldn't hurt. Knowledge is power, Julian added from the doorway. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I took the articles to my study, photographed each page, and filed them as evidence. Psychological manipulation documented. They were constructing a narrative. The confused old man who needed intervention, who couldn't be trusted to handle his own affairs. Over the next 3 days, more articles appeared. Residences for people with dementia. The importance of power of attorney. Financial management for those experiencing cognitive difficulties. Each one was carefully placed where I would find it. Each one was photographed and filed. On March 8th, the surveillance cameras caught them in the living room, believing they were alone. "We need an expert opinion," Julian said. "Someone who can evaluate him professionally." "A psychologist?" Elena's voice held equal parts hope and guilt. "I know someone. Dr. Elias Thorne, a clinical psychologist specializing in elderly cognition. We set up a casual lunch. I introduce them. Elias makes observations. Will he do it ethically? Will he be objective? If your father shows symptoms, Elias documents them. If not," Julian shrugged, "then we'll know for sure." I watched this conversation 3 times, taking notes. The tension was escalating. They were seeking external validation for their version of events. On March 10th, I met Julian for lunch at a cafe in Coconut Grove. He had suggested it that morning so we can get to know each other better without the stress of work. And I accepted with appropriate gratitude. Dr. Elias Thorne joined us 15 minutes in. "Hey, this is my friend Elias." I mentioned him. The psychologist. We shook hands. Elias. About 40-something. Professional demeanor. Cautious eyes. "Julian told me about you. Successful sale. Congratulations." We talked for an hour. My performance was impeccable. I occasionally searched for words, asked Elias to repeat questions, and commented on my forgetfulness. I didn't exaggerate, just a hint of confusion. Elias maintained professional distance, but I caught him watching me, evaluating, cataloguing. "It was a pleasure meeting you," Elias said as lunch ended, handing me his card. "If you ever want to discuss professional topics, I'm available. I put the card in my pocket. Evidence, not service. That night, the surveillance cameras recorded Julian calling Elias from the living room. The speakerphone on. "What did you think?" Julian asked impatiently. He's 63. Some age-appropriate variation in memory isn't unusual. Elias's voice was carefully neutral. "I can't make clinical assessments based on an informal lunch conversation. But if there were genuine concerns, I could evaluate him formally. With his consent. Yes. But Julian, I'm not comfortable being part of this. If you have legitimate concerns about his well-being, there are proper channels." "Sure. I'm just exploring options." After hanging up, Julian's face darkened. "We'll find someone else." I saved that recording with particular satisfaction. Even when they tried to corrupt professionals, ethics intervened. From March 12th to 17th, I continued my performance. Small errors, confusion, repeated questions. On the 15th, at breakfast, I asked Elena about the plans we had discussed the night before, feigning forgetfulness. Her eyes lit up with excitement, barely concealed. The surveillance cameras recorded everything. Their conversations about my decline, Julian researching commitment procedures, Elena worrying that things were moving too slowly. On March 18th, I adjusted my strategy. At dinner, I casually commented that I had been thinking about updating my will. Julian suggested it given the business sale. I want to make sure everything is in order. A dead silence fell. Then Elena, trying to sound nonchalant. "That's responsible. Dad. When are you meeting with him? He'll be preparing the documents soon. Making sure you're well taken care of." I left the words hanging in the air. Bait in a trap. After dinner, I retreated to my study. The surveillance cameras recorded them in the kitchen. They spoke in low voices, but the microphone caught everything. "He mentioned the will," Elena said, barely containing her hope. "That doesn't mean he's changing it in our favor." Julian's voice held a warning. "It could be the opposite. But if he really is confused, if we document that he's not competent when making changes, then we challenge them later. Either way, we need more evidence of his decline. Real evidence, not just observations." They talked for 40 minutes, planning how to document my supposed incompetence. Video, everything. Record strange behavior. Build a case for incapacity that would invalidate any legal change against their interests. I watched them celebrate their cleverness, pouring wine and toasting to progress. They thought they were winning. I closed the laptop, opened my phone, and searched for Harrison Cole's number. 3 weeks of recordings, conversations, plans, attempts at manipulation, psychological warfare, all captured with perfect digital clarity. Tomorrow, we would discuss how weeks of evidence could be turned into a legal strategy, how surveillance could be a tool for pressure, how their own words could destroy them. I had documented their plan with the same methodical patience they had used on mine. Only I had done it better. With more detail. With more strategy. It was time to move to the next phase. It was time to show them what happened when they underestimated a man who built an empire from scratch. who understood that true power lay in preparation, documentation, and knowing exactly when to strike. I texted Harrison, "I have new compelling evidence. Need an urgent meeting." He responded in minutes. "Friday at 10, 0 inches the morning. Bring everything." I hung up the phone. Through the study window, the moonlight painted the lawn silver. In the house around me, they slept soundly, believing they were the architects of my ruin. They had no idea they were building their own. The morning light streamed through the study windows. March 19th at 8, I picked up the phone and dialed Harrison Cole's direct number. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Sterling, your message said you had evidence." Weeks of it. Surveillance recordings, conversations, attempts at manipulation, all documented. "I need to meet today. This afternoon at 2, bring everything." I spent the morning organizing it. I created a folder on my laptop called Legal Evidence Package. Surveillance files copied, organized by date and severity. Printed transcripts of their most damning conversations. Julian talking about competency challenges. Elena worried about my suspicious silence. Both celebrating their supposed progress toward controlling my assets. Veronica's weekly reports went into a manila envelope, underlined and tabbed. I loaded everything onto 2 USB drives, one for Harrison and one backup. At 2, I sat across from Harrison in his conference room. The USB drive and documents between us, like exhibits in a trial. He watched 3 hours of recording, read all the transcripts, and studied Veronica's behavioral analysis. Finally, he leaned back, fingers interlaced. "This is extensive. Multiple legal options, restraining orders, civil lawsuit, criminal charges for attempted poisoning." He tapped the trust document I had mentioned. "But first, we protect your assets. Irrevocable living trust." How does that work? Assets are transferred to the trust. It becomes an independent legal entity. An independent trustee administers it. You set the conditions for beneficiary access. Once signed, they are untouchable. Not even you can modify them. He pulled out a notepad and began sketching the structure. "We'll make it bulletproof. They won't be able to access it through lawsuits, manipulate the administrators, or effectively challenge it." How long would it take? A week. If we act now, you'll transfer the majority of your assets. Keep enough liquidity for personal use. We'll establish strict conditions for Elena's eventual access. What conditions? Harrison smiled. A sharp professional grin. Whatever you want. Age requirements. Financial independence. Absence of pending lawsuits. In short, any measure that ensures she cannot access the money through coercion or fraud. Over the next 5 days, we built an impenetrable fortress around my wealth. March 20th. Trust structure designed. $25 million transferred to the trust. $5 million kept liquid for my use. Elena could access it at age 45, 9 years from now, if she demonstrated 5 years of financial independence and had no civil or criminal cases against her for financial reasons. On March 23rd, a meeting with Florida Fiduciary Services, 2 fiduciary officers, professional and impartial. Explained their role. They would follow this document to the letter. No family pressure. No manipulation. No exceptions. March 24th. Final signing. Harrison's conference room again. But this time with a notary and fiduciary officers present. The documents lay across the table like a treaty ending a war. I signed each page, initialed and dated. The notary officially sealed each signature. Your assets are protected, Harrison said as I put the copies in a leather folder. She cannot manipulate, coerce, or sue you for them. The trust is irrevocable. Case closed. I drove home with a feeling I hadn't felt since February. Power. Control. Security. At home. Life continued its strange theatre. They still knew nothing of the trust. The surveillance cameras recorded their casual conversations about the inheritance. Their certainty that eventually my money would be theirs. March 28th. Breakfast. Buttered toast. Elena mentioned when we inherit, as if it were inevitable. That night, Julian's laptop search history, how to challenge a will in Florida. I decided to tell them on April 1st, an auspicious date for plans to unravel. On March 31st, I texted both of them. Family meeting tomorrow. 10:00 the morning. In the living room. Important. Harrison had advised doing it in public or with witnesses. They could become aggressive. My house, I replied. My rules. The cameras would record everything. April 1st arrived. A clear, bright day. I set up my laptop connected to the television with the surveillance footage ready. At 10, they entered the living room. A palpable, nervous energy in the air. I stood. They sat. The sofa was lower than I was, establishing a hierarchy. I have made decisions about my estate. I filed the trust document. I have created an irrevocable living trust. Their attention sharpened. I explained systematically. $25 million transferred. Independent trustee. Conditions of access. Minimum age 45. Financial independence. No pending lawsuits. I watched their faces register comprehension. What? Elena's voice cracked. Are you cutting me out? I am protecting my assets from manipulation. Julian leaped up from the sofa. All this over the restaurant. A mistake. And you? A mistake. I picked up the remote and hit play. Their voices filled the room. Surveillance footage. Them talking about my competency issues. Planning to document my decline. Celebrating their progress toward the inheritance. You spied on us, Elena cried now. Your own daughter. I protected myself from those who tried to drug me into signing legal documents. We're going to sue. Julian stepped forward, poorly disguising his aggression. We're going to challenge this. You can't. It's irrevocable. It's done. Legally bulletproof. I looked him in the eyes without blinking. Try to challenge it. Don't waste your money on lawyers. We've lived here for 5 years. We have rights. You have no rights to my money. You never did. Julian stormed out. Elena followed, sobbing. I went back to my study, reviewed the camera recording of the confrontation I had just captured, saved it with the date and time, and a label, evidence of reaction. The rage confirmed their guilt. The following week, the house became a battlefield. Doors slamming, hostile silence. Calls to lawyers were overheard, all saying the same thing. The trust was solid, unshakable. On April 7th, Elena attempted reconciliation. She knocked on my study door, tears welling up. "Dad, we can fix this. I'm your daughter." My daughter would never have tried to poison me. It was a mistake. "Please leave my study." She left. I sat alone, staring at the wall, knowing what came next. The trust protected my money. Now, I needed to reclaim my house. I opened my notebook and wrote 4 words: "Get them out of the house." That same night, I called a real estate agent, Linda Moretti, recommended by my banker for her discretion and speed. "I want to sell my house. When can we list it?" "I can see it tomorrow morning. If it's as you describe, we could list it this weekend." April 8th. She arrived with a tape measure and a professional appraisal. I walked through the rooms where my daughter and son-in-law still lived, evaluating the market value of the house they were borrowing. A lovely property. I can list it for $7 million. This market moves fast, but the property must be vacant for showings. It will be. The listing went live on April 10th. First showings scheduled for April 12th. I notified Elena and Julian via text message. Showings Friday. "You'll need to be out for 3 hours." "You're selling the house?" Julian replied by text. "Yes." There was no response. They left on Friday morning, and when they returned, they found business cards from potential buyers on the kitchen counter. Their faces registered the comprehension that I was completely dismantling their life. On April 15th, I asked Harrison to draft the eviction notice formal, legal, final, giving them 60 days to vacate. I handed it to them that night as they sat in the living room, their borrowed living room. Julian read it, his face darkening. He tore it in half. "You can't evict us. This is our home." Read the notice. "Challenge it all you want. No lease. No rent. No tenant rights. 60 days. June 15th. We'll fight this. Try it." They hired a lawyer on April 16th. I listened to their consultation call via surveillance cameras. The lawyer's assessment matched Harrison's. If there's no lease, he has grounds. You live there by permission, which he is now revoking. Harrison filed the eviction lawsuit on April 20th. The court date was set for May 3rd, 3 weeks away. Meanwhile, I rented an apartment downtown, month-to-month lease. Oceanfront. Quiet. A clean place. No grudges. I moved out on April 28th. The house became hostile territory. I stayed mostly at the apartment, returning only for necessities. On each visit, the surveillance cameras captured their desperation. Elena crying, Julian raging, both calling lawyers who had no solutions. May 10th arrived. Miami-Dade Courthouse. 3rd floor. Eviction trial. Harrison and I sat at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Elena, Julian, and their lawyer. Young and overmatched. Aware he had no case. Judge Vance took the bench. A man in his 52nd, serious-looking, experienced in seeing people try to evade consequences. Their lawyer stood. Your Honor, my clients have lived in this property for 5 years. Under what agreement? Judge Vance interrupted. His family. The plaintiff is Ms. Sterling Fox's father. That is not a lease agreement. Do they pay rent? No. Do they have a written lease? No, Your Honor. Then they are guests without a contract. Mr. Sterling has given appropriate 60-day notice. He looked at Harrison. Yes. Your Honor. Served on April 15th. They have until June 15th to vacate. Judge Vance reviewed the documents. I see no legal impediment to this eviction. The plaintiff is the owner of the property. The defendants have no lease or rental agreement. Notice was proper. He looked at Elena and Julian. You have until June 15th. After that date, law enforcement can intervene. Motion granted. The gavel cracked. Final decision. In the hallway, Julian confronted me, his voice low and menacing. You'll regret this. You're destroying your own family. I am removing those who poisoned me. We'll make you pay. With what money? I walked away, leaving him sputtering in the hallway. The next 5 weeks were a tense standoff. I stayed at the apartment. They remained in the house, packing slowly, desperately searching for rental properties they couldn't afford without my help. The surveillance cameras recorded endless arguments. Elena breaking down. Julian's fury at their complete defeat. On June 14th, I received confirmation. The buyer of the house had completed the inspection and the sale was approved for closing in August. Pending possession handover. June 15th was moving day. I arrived at the house at noon. A large moving truck was in the driveway loading furniture. Elena, eyes red, face haggard, gave instructions to the movers. Julian loaded boxes, his jerky movements reflecting contained fury. They didn't even greet me. I stood on the lawn watching them load their possessions. Everything I had bought for them. Everything they had accumulated during 5 years of living off my generosity. The truck pulled away at 4. They drove off in Julian's car without looking back. I entered the empty house, the echo of footsteps ringing on the hardwood floor. No furniture, no trace of them. No trace of poison in the air. Room by room, I walked through the reclaimed space. Marks on the walls where pictures once hung. Indentations in the carpet where furniture had been. The house felt like an empty shell, contaminated by what had happened inside, but finally blissfully empty. My phone vibrated. Harrison. Eviction completed. Ready to talk civil lawsuit. I stood in the center of the living room. My living room. Looking around at the emptiness. Selling the house would erase their presence completely. But first, one more legal action. One final blow. I texted back. Yes. Let's schedule a meeting for Monday. It's time for this to be definitive. I wrote my reply to Harrison. Yes. Let's schedule the meeting for Monday. It was time for this to be permanently on the record. The empty living room surrounded me. No furniture. Just the hardwood floor and the echo. I sat down, my back against the wall, laptop resting on my knees, and opened the evidence folders one last time. Months of documentation, surveillance recordings ordered by date, hospital medical records, Mateo's statement, Veronica's reports, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation, every proof that what happened to me was not paranoia, but premeditated exploitation. I created a final chronological document, printed everything, and organized it into a tabbed, expanding folder. Each item told part of the story. Taken together, they were undeniable. On Monday morning, June 16th, I met Harrison in his office. He spread the evidence across the conference table as if it were an indictment. Civil lawsuit under Florida Statute 825.103, Harrison said. Taking notes. Elder exploitation. Financial manipulation. Attempted battery by drugging. Coercion. Aggravated emotional distress. Fraud. Conspiracy. Seeking $500,000 in damages plus costs. This isn't about money, I said. I know. It's about public record documenting what they did. He looked up from his notes. You want consequences? Exactly. We filed the complaint on June 17th. Elena and Julian received the court notification in their new apartment, a small two-bedroom unit in a neighborhood far removed from the luxury of Coral Gables. The process server reported they had barely unpacked. Their lawyer contacted Harrison a few days later, his voice tight on the speakerphone. My clients can't afford this. They're already ruined. They should have considered that before attempting to drug and defraud their benefactor, Harrison replied coldly. Discovery began. Harrison requested their financial records. Bank statements revealed the truth. No savings. Living paycheck to paycheck on credit cards. Drowning in debt created by their life expectations. On June 28th, the settlement offer arrived. I met Harrison in his office to review it. $50,000 payment plan. Private admission of guilt. No trial. It's reasonable, Harrison said cautiously. They clearly can't pay the full judgment, but the settlement would be confidential. No public record. I slid the papers back across his desk. No. I want this to be public. I want it on the court records forever. Trial is risky. The judge could award less compensation. I don't care about the money. I care about the record. I looked him in the eyes. They tried to destroy me. I want official record that they were wrong and I was right. Harrison nodded slowly. Then we go to trial. July became the month of preparation. Mateo confirmed he would testify. The hospital doctor provided an expert affidavit. Veronica prepared the surveillance evidence for court presentation. I gave a deposition. Hours of questions answered under oath, laying the factual foundation. July 25th. Preliminary hearing. The judge set the trial date for July 28th. That Monday morning dawned clear and hot. I dressed in my best suit and arrived early at the Miami-Dade County Courthouse. Judge Hastings presided. She was in her 52nds, known for her impartiality and strong rulings. Harrison had recommended a bench trial instead of a jury trial. Judges understand elder law better than average citizens, he explained. Opening statements. Harrison presented the timeline and evidence summary with meticulous precision. Their lawyer, young and out of his depth, argued that a family misunderstanding had been exaggerated. Mateo testified first. He described the restaurant incident with full conviction. I saw Mrs. So. Sterling Fox pour something from a small vial into Mr. Sterling's wine glass while he was away from the table. Clear. Liquid. Deliberate action. Their lawyer attempted cross-examination. Could you have been mistaken? No. I know what I saw. I couldn't keep quiet. The hospital doctor explained the diazepam analysis results. Dosage. Dangers. Veronica presented the surveillance methodology, chain of custody, and authentication of the recordings. Day 2, July 29th. The surveillance video played on the courtroom screen. Their own voices filled the space, discussing competency issues, planning Elias's consultation, and celebrating their supposed progress toward the inheritance. Julian said, "He's 63, not lucid anymore." Elena's voice said, "We deserve this money." I watched Judge Hastings take notes, her expression serious and focused. Elena testified, crying. She admitted to the restaurant incident, but claimed she only wanted him to listen to her about important papers. Julian testified. Defensive and hostile. He blamed me for overreacting to a family conflict. Then it was my turn. The witness stand felt solemn, formal, everyone watching me. I stated my name, my age, and my relationship to the defendants. I answered Harrison's questions calmly and precisely. Restaurant surveillance, trust creation, eviction. I presented the evidence one by one. Cross-examination became aggressive. Aren't you being vengeful, Mr. Sterling? I'm seeking accountability. There's a difference. Judge Hastings asked her own question. Why pursue a civil suit after fiduciary protection and eviction? I looked straight at her. Because what they did was wrong. It needs to be on public record for my protection, as a precedent for the truth. July 30th. Closing arguments. Harrison, this is a textbook case of elder exploitation. Attempted battery by drugging. Financial manipulation. Psychological coercion. The evidence is overwhelming. Their lawyer, family conflict and poor judgment. Yes, but not criminal exploitation. Judge Hastings closed her notebook. I will issue the ruling in writing in 2 weeks. I left the courthouse in the late afternoon heat with the satisfaction of having completed my task. I spoke the truth publicly, presented the evidence. Now justice would decide if the truth mattered. 2 weeks of waiting. 2 weeks wondering if the system would validate what I had suffered or dismiss it as family drama. I returned to my temporary apartment, watched the sunset over Biscayne Bay, and waited for the world to confirm what I already knew, that I had been right to protect myself. to defend myself, to demand justice. August 15th. The dawn light filtered over the ocean outside my balcony. Coffee steamed in my hand. Bitter. Familiar. Comforting. 2 weeks after the trial ended, the phone rang at 9. Mr. Sterling. Harrison. We have the verdict. I sat down. The infinite ocean stretching out before me. The judge ruled in your favor. Total victory. Clear and convincing evidence of elder exploitation. Attempted financial fraud. And intentional infliction of emotional distress was found. Judgment for $350,000 plus court costs. $75,000 in punitive damages. $425,000 total. The number seemed abstract. There's more, Harrison continued. Permanent restraining order. They are prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly. No calls. No letters. No communications through third parties. Violation results in contempt charges. And the payment? They have nothing. Court-ordered payment plan. Garnishment of future wages until the debt is settled could take years. But the judgment is public record. Searchable permanent documentation of what they attempted. That's what I wanted. Not the money. Documentation. Validation. Public record that I wasn't paranoid or cruel. That I was the victim of an attack. And I had every right to defend myself. Thank you, Harrison, for everything. You did the work. I just legalized it. After hanging up, I sat watching the sunrise. The written opinion arrived by email an hour later. I read every page. Judge Hastings wrote, "The evidence presented demonstrates the premeditated exploitation of an elderly person by those in positions of trust. The incident at the restaurant, the attempt to drug someone to facilitate document signing, constitutes a felony in itself. Subsequent surveillance recordings reveal ongoing manipulation and planning. This court finds the defendant's actions reprehensible and deserving of the maximum civil sanctions." Reprehensible. Maximum penalty. Public document. I printed the opinion and filed it. One more document in a case now closed. On August 16th, I closed on the sale of the Coral Gables house. Sold to a young family for $2.75 million. They will never know what happened within those walls. They will fill it with different memories, different lives, different futures. That same day, I bought a downtown apartment. 10th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Ocean views to the horizon. $850,000 cash purchase from the house sale. Modern. Impeccable. No history. I moved in on August 18th. Furniture arrived and was simply placed. Nothing excessive. Nothing unnecessary. The space felt like taking a breath after being underwater. August 20th. Last meeting with Veronica in her Pinewood office. The certification still hung on the wall. Case closed, she said, handing me a USB drive. All the surveillance recordings, reports, and documentation. Go on the record that I thank you for everything. You made it easy. They were predictable. She stood and extended her hand. Take care. Mr. Sterling. We shook hands. The matter concluded. The professional relationship was over. On August 22nd, I sat on my new balcony, phone in hand. I searched for Elena's contact, my finger hovering over the screen. Delete contact. A confirmation box popped up. I pressed yes. Her name vanished. Julian's followed. Both disappeared from my phone, from my life, from my future. The restraining order legally barred them from communication. Even if they wanted to apologize, reconcile, or explain, the law prevented it. 3 years minimum. Enough time for life to move on without them. I felt nothing. Neither satisfaction nor sadness. Just a serene peace. On August 23rd and 24th, I established new routines. Coffee on the balcony in the morning. Walks by the sea in the afternoon. Reading at night with the sound of the ocean drifting through the open windows. I called old friends I had neglected during the chaos. Made lunch plans. Reconnected. And rebuilt my social life outside of surveillance and legal battles. On August 25th, the sunset painted the sky in layers, orange blending into purple, then deep blue. I stood on my balcony, coffee cooling in my hand, watching the day turn into night. 6 months since February. Since that restaurant, since Matteo's warning, the glass switch, and everything that followed. I protected my assets through the trust, evicted them from my house, held them accountable with a civil judgment, and put their exploitation on public record. I won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival, like emerging from dark waters and realizing I was still breathing. My daughter had tried to poison me. That truth weighed on me. Unchangeable. But I refused to be a victim. I refused to accept the manipulation. I refused to let trust make me vulnerable to destruction. The ocean stretched infinitely, the horizon line crisp and defined. Somewhere in the city behind me, Elena and Julian lived with the consequences. A court debt that would follow them for years. A public record that affected their job applications and background checks. A restraining order that prevented them from spinning their story or seeking reconciliation on their own terms. I didn't hate them. Hate required energy, attention, emotional dedication, all that I had dedicated to documentation, preparation, and legal battles. Now I only had peace. The sun touched the horizon. The colors deepened, and the city lights began to twinkle behind me. My coffee was cold, but I didn't move to refill it. I simply stood there, watching the cycle of nature continue, oblivious to human drama. I built an empire from nothing, sold it for $30 million, protected $25 million through an unshakable trust, lost a daughter, but saved myself. I found justice in the courts, and peace in separation. Some stories end with family reunions, forgiveness, and healing. This one ended with distance, documentation, and the relief of being safe. The sun disappeared behind the ocean, darkness settling around me. I finished my cold coffee, left the cup on the balcony railing, and watched the stars appear. Tomorrow I would call my former partner about that consulting opportunity. Next week, I would have lunch with friends. Eventually, I would date, travel, and fill my days with something other than litigation. But tonight I simply stood here, free, protected, alone, but not lonely. The ocean whispered against the shore below. The city hummed with its infinite rhythm. Life went on, indifferent to individual struggles, offering new days to those who survived old battles. I had survived, and that was enough. If you liked this story, please hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left. Thank you for watching.